Him. And He doesn't leave us, He doesn't let us down in those circumstances.
That's spot on. I love that. I've heard, I think John Piper also says something like that, like do the next right thing, right? When you see nothing, just take the next right step, and God continues to lead you, right? That's in a way, the way that He leads us and guides us. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that?
I guess, I guess a similar situation was when my husband and I felt like he was called to ministry. We had served in youth ministry, well, I had for over 10 years by that point in time, and he actually kind of dragged him into youth ministry. At first he was like, I don't want to go. We went to camp, and then he fell in love, and then he was like in love with youth ministry. And through our passion in serving with youth ministry, he felt the call when we were at camp. He was like, I think I should become a pastor. It's kind of what I feel like God saved me. And I'm like, well, we know that was where you're going to go all along, because like so many people had already spoken into his life before and said, I feel like that's what you're going to do. And that was all his background. He's an accountant by training, and then a master's in business, so seminary was not there. On that journey to go there, we hit a lot of obstacles in the way. First was within our own church, where it was like, well, there's really no job here, so not really sure we should be supporting you. It was our 10-year anniversary, and he had a trip to go on for work, and so we decided I'd go with him, because it was going to be, we could then detour to where we thought God was calling us to go to ministry, seminary, which was in Texas. And so we spent our 10th anniversary looking at schools there, talking with schools, doing a tour, looking at apartments and everything, because we were sure. We put our house up for sale and everything, and he even really, we prayed, and I mean, my husband had like 100% surety from God that this is what He wanted us to do. But then we came back and the house didn't sell, and nothing was falling into place, and it was just like, okay, we don't understand. We know that this is what you said you want us to do, but nothing seems to be happening. So we did the next best thing, and we just kept moving on. And he wasn't happy in his job at that time either, so he felt like this calling was really for him, and was like, okay, you just need to find your peace where you are. When God is ready, when you've completed that task, open the next door. Sure enough, it was a year to the day almost that we went to seminary overseas, and we went to see the schools, that he was approached by CI Baptist to say, hey, we're starting a seminary, the same school we went to, but the satellite campus here in the Cayman Islands. So the seminary that he wanted to go to came to him. Didn't offer quite the same degree, but it came to him, and we were just like in awe that we didn't have to quit our jobs, we didn't have to uproot our whole family, and God still opened that door for him to do his seminary studies right here in the Cayman Islands. I mean, God is just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Mine's a little further back. I think I had an idea about what my life was going to look like from graduated college and was still single and wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now, because I went to Bible college and grew up thinking that I was going to be a stay-at-home wife and mom and all of that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm done with school. Now I have to be a grown-up, but I don't have the job that I thought I was going to have. So I did a lot of short-term mission trips and trying to kind of figure things out. And I was keen to travel. I was keen to serve. And I saw myself doing ministry in some way, whether it was volunteer basis or whatever. And after 2 years of kind of being transient, living out of my car at times, and just adding all kinds of stamps to my passport and getting really great experiences, and a lot of them ministry-based, I had friends who had gone overseas to serve in Italy, and one of them was going to finish her term of service, and the other one was going to stay, and they needed someone to add to the team. So I thought, well, maybe this is the thing. I'd been serving in youth group and various things at my church, but I thought, this could be it. I think that maybe I'll join them. And so I went overseas. There was a lot of hiccups, like the biggest one being that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, like right as I was going, which was really hard. But I was just there for a month to kind of get a feeler out. And while I was there, it was a really good experience. I'd gone through some training to do English as a second language teaching, and that was part of their ministry there. And in the process of being there, I felt more and more called to be back where I had come from, which felt really ironic, because I had been I was invested in relationships, but I had resisted committing to anything that required me to commit to a longer term, because I was like, well, I'm probably gonna go somewhere, so I can't commit to something. And so after 1 month in Rome, I came back to the States, to this small seminary town, and I felt bad, but I emailed my friend and I said, you know, after all this time and considering, I don't think I'm meant to come. And I had, in the process of considering that, I wasn't going to be sent by an organization. I was going to be joining a team who were part of an organization, but I would have had to raise support, and the initial time period would have been 6 months. And it stuck out to me that I've spent 2 years considering where God's going to send me to spend potentially 6 months somewhere, as if that's the end goal. You know, like 6 months, my whole life has led to this moment, you know? And then I realized that I'd been holding back to any number of opportunities he had been placing before me where I was, and missing that next right thing to some extent. I mean, I got to go on a lot of mission trips, and I know he worked through all those situations, and even that experience, it brought me to this realization that there's so much we can do where we are, and he will bring things to us or send us somewhere. But if we the whole time are looking out, you know, where is it I'm supposed to go, God, that we might miss the opportunities we have. And after that, I felt, I don't know, revived in my spirit to actually commit to different things, and I got to experience ministries that I'd been hesitant to join before, and it was a very I just keep saying the word ironic, but it was an ironic change in my view, that I was like, I'm going to go somewhere and it's going to be amazing. And then I stayed in this small town and got connected. And I mean, eventually here I am in a different country, but not where
Eventually you went. No, but that's so typical of us. Sometimes we're always waiting for this like grand thing to happen, right? And where God just wants us to plant roots and be faithful where we are, and take up the opportunities that are right in front of us. And after we are faithful in those things, then he moves us on, right? He keeps guiding us into the next thing, but there was a process that needed to happen beforehand, right? And I'm sure that in all your traveling around, God did that too. So he knows what he's doing for sure. Well, the next question that I wanted to ask you ladies is maybe a little bit more difficult. Has there ever been a time where you suffered loss or disappointment or hurt even, and how did God help you through that season? How did you work through that season with God? And how would you even encourage somebody here who's actually feeling that or working through that?
Okay. The thing that stands out to me is probably my most significant loss, and that was when we moved to Cayman. My husband was moving back after getting a seminary degree, and it was 2013. I was pregnant, and it was still early, but I had, you know, this was the thing I'd been waiting for, like I said in the last little blurb, and then we lost the baby, and it was already kind of a difficult transition because I had left family and friends and my home church, and I was excited. I knew it wasn't like I married him and then he said, by the way, we're moving. I knew going into a relationship with him that I was going to be part of it, and I think God prepared us for that. But I just, I didn't know how to manage. I didn't know how to process that, and I don't think I handled it really well. I was new here. I didn't know a lot of people. There were lots of people in the church and through his family who are here who had reached out and were very friendly. But as far as me feeling connected, even as an extrovert, I found it very hard to connect in Cayman. And I blame some of it on the fact that he just kind of re-entered life. He joined old family members and friends, and he immediately started back up with his old small group and his basketball you know, and I didn't have that, and I felt like, man, have I forgotten how to make friends? You know, but also going through that loss made me, I kind of like pulled into myself, and God provided this person who I've known her since I was a kid, but only kind of, you know, we went to Sunday school together, or we were in college together, so at different points in our lives we were connected socially, but not really interpersonally, you know, friends. But I had seen this post on Facebook about a loss she had had, and with her own child. And I reached out to her for whatever reason, because I think when you go through a loss, your eyes get more open to seeing that what other people have experienced. And every other story I might have heard about miscarriage, it made me wonder, like, man, how did I respond when I heard that? Was it, oh, I'm so sorry, and then you kind of move on, because how do you talk about that? But anyway, I reached out to this woman, and she was such a gift from God for that period, because again, I didn't feel comfortable connecting with the new friends and family here in the same way. And even though I didn't have a strong relationship with her, she had gone through so much with her own loss that she was just a safe place, and would check in with me. And the period between losing our first baby and then finding I was pregnant with Kate, who's now 7, was, it felt like a really long time, but for people who go through that kind of experience, it probably really wasn't that long. But in the end, Kate was conceived the month that I would have been due. And so it was this beautiful healing thing for me. I mean, a new child, a baby, is always this beautiful gift from God. But and I didn't know it until then. But I saw somebody posted again on Facebook about like a rainbow blanket that they were giving to someone, and the explanation was that a baby after a miscarriage is called a rainbow baby. And this is going to be a little random, but when my husband and I were first married, and not considering the whole let's get these things started, we're 2 months in, we went on a road trip to go skiing. And I thought, this is a safe conversation because we're not planning to start a family right now. But he and I are so different in personality. He's like 5 years in advance, he's thinking about things, and I'm just I just throw things out there, dream about stuff, whatever. It's like, what would you want to name a baby if we had? And he's like, whoa, why are we talking about this? And I just didn't, I was offended. I was like, why, you don't want to, I mean, I'm not saying let's start. But it ended up, instead of being this, what I thought was going to be a nice conversation to pass the time, it became this stressful almost argument where I have parents who used to be hippies, and I tend in certain directions, and he's a little more straight-laced, and so he's like, well, you'd probably want to name our kid Rainbow or something. And I was like, really? What, do you want to name her Tiffany? And that kind of. So anyway, the conversation didn't go where I thought it would go, but then coming back around to having my daughter, when I was pregnant with her and learning that she was a rainbow baby, and then these friends we have on island had a little girl, and she asked, like, have you named the baby yet? And I was like, well, I kind of want to meet her first. And she said, I think you should name her Rainbow. And it just all kept coming around. It was funny, but it was also just like these reminders that not everybody's story goes that way, but it was such a blessing and such a gift to having gone through a really difficult period. And even though I didn't, like, looking back, I didn't handle it in a way that I would say, yeah, do what I did. He was faithful. He was the safe place to turn to, like the song that we sang earlier, and he graciously gave me what I wanted, even though I had to go through a difficult thing first.
So if I had to think about a difficult situation for me, I would have to say it was my first couple of years of marriage. So as you heard, I have a 26-year-old and then a 13-year-old. And so I had my daughter when I was 17. I turned 18 the month that I had her. I was a teenage mom. It was not easy. That was another time. But I wasn't really following Christ then, so I'm not going to use that example. But later on, I got my life together. I went off to college, took my daughter with me. We came back. And I reconnected with Christ when I was at college. I joined a local church there. And so I kind of finally gotten back to Christ because I was straight after being baptized at 15. And I was like, okay, God's going to bless me with this really good Christian husband. I did all the right things when we met. It was like, okay, God, don't let me have feelings. Let's just get to know each other. I just want to be his friend. And if that's what he wants, you think through all these things about this perfect marriage that you're going to have. And my daughter really liked him. She was really excited about the marriage, and everything seemed like it was going to be perfect in your mind. And then we got married. And my husband came from a family where he had a mother and a father the whole time. And I came from a broken family where my father was not a part of my life at all and still pretty much isn't, just kind of pops in and out every so often. So we had very different parenting styles, and I had my daughter for the last 12 years, but it was just me and her. And so even though she was excited about this father figure, having a father figure that's telling you, no, you can't do that, and you need to wash clothes, was like, oh my goodness, what do you know, it was just, it like hit her like a ton of bricks. And even for me, like when I hear him discipline her, it was harsh because I'd never heard a male discipline in that regard. So the mother discipline is much different. The voice, I mean, you might say all the same things, but it just sounds different. I can't explain it, but it so is. And so it was even hard for me to be caught in the middle, and I had my family saying, you know, well, he should be doing these things, and then he was like, you know, had his family going, you know, well, we told you, you know, getting married to someone who has a child was going to be hard, and we were just all stuck in the middle. And that will be a book one day, I promise to write that. But we were literally all, my daughter was stuck in the middle trying to, want her mom, wanted this, didn't know what to do. We were all just stuck in the middle, and it was really, really hard. I went away on a trip, and I got a call that he had left my daughter on the side of the road. It was really crazy. But that was how he dealt with the anger that he felt when he couldn't deal with her and wasn't sure what to do. And it was just, it was not the marriage that I thought I was going to have. None of us were in a honeymoon period. That did not even exist. Our honeymoon came probably after 10 years when she'd gone off to college and grown, and we had our other first child, that we actually started to really be able to just bond as two people. Because with her in the mix, it was just really, really awkward and weird, and it was just not pleasant. And I remember just thinking, God, I don't understand. I did everything right this time. Okay, I had the baby outside, but we committed, we got married, we did everything right, and it sucked. It was so hard being stuck in that middle and not knowing what to do for your daughter, and how to meet your husband, and how to be all these things. And it was a Christian relationship. He was a Christian, I was a Christian. I just did not get it. And by the grace of God, my pastor wife at the time, we were doing a lot of talking to people and counseling with good Christian people, and she said to me, and these words I will never forget, she's like, well, you kind of just have to, enjoy the good times, and that'll help you get through the bad. And I was like, say what? No, but God is on my side. What do you mean enjoy the good times? Because the bad, it didn't click at that point in time. And then we had a session with my pastor who finally kind of said to me, and this was on private, he was like, whatever comes out, it's not that he's saying it to hurt your feelings. He doesn't know how to say it, but I hear it as if, oh my goodness, I'm this person, I'm that person. He's like, he doesn't mean it that way. You have to give him that measure of grace to understand that he loves you. He just may not know how to say it in those moments, in the fights and the disagreements and whatever it was we were having in those situations. And between her helping me over time and God revealing that, she's right, marriage isn't going to be perfect. It never is. We're two imperfect beings trying our best to meet each other where they're at with God's help. And so we just learned to love each other in the good times, bear through the difficult times, which still happen, it's not perfect, but just trusting him, and that really helped us get to where we are. And I look back at it now, and I remember jokingly saying, we're finally in the honeymoon phase, and things have gotten so much better. But it was really, really tough in those first, 5 to 7, 8 years of marriage. But God is good and faithful, and we did keep our eyes on Christ. I had my aunt's a Christian counselor, and I remember calling her and telling her, and I think God probably gave her a word as well, that we were struggling. And I'd meet her every lunch hour on Zoom, and this was 7 years ago or more. And she would just open his word, and she would just let me read it out loud. Like, God's word was really, that and the advice was what got me through that difficult patch, was just reading his word and reminding me that he was there, and that everything I do is to serve him, including my husband. And as much as I'm serving him, he's serving me, but we're serving Christ. And those are the reminders that we had that help us get through and keep us where we are today, get us where we are today.
And I second a lot of that about marriage. I definitely see the beauty as the years go on, and the first few years can be really rough, and it does get better and better in my opinion, in my experience too. As far as hurts and disappointments, probably the most present thing that's kind of top of mind for me right now is serving the kids who are in our care, in foster care. husband and I, and just seeing kids in our community who have trauma, who come through our home for short periods of time or for longer periods of time, and watching them process their disappointments and their hurts and new boundaries, new rules, and then watching my husband and I process new schools, new school counselors, new routines, new understandings of how this particular child works and what works with them, what doesn't work with them. And so it's funny because when we were talking when we first got here tonight, I was like, I don't know about everyone, but I feel like I'm one sentence away from bursting into tears. And some seasons are just like that, and with kids in our home who have a lot of hurt and trauma, that is pretty common, I think. And some seasons are hard, and then you have a really a good night where you have a good devotion, a good bedtime story, and a big old tickle fight, and everything seems great. And then the next morning, it's back to some hard, really stretching moments where you can't control, and I'm a control person, so I'm not being able to control the scenario around me and other people's thoughts and feelings and actions is a real stretch. But God is so good, and He gives us, and I've seen this day after day, and I've seen it more today than other days, I think. He gives us the strength that we really just don't have on our own. And pointing ourselves to Him and pointing our kids to Him, that this world is messy and broken, but last night our devotion with the kids was, there'll be no more pain, no more tears, no more sorrow. Like God is making everything new. We literally were reading in a kid's book, Revelation 21, and just to think about that, no pain, no tears, no sorrow, that is our hope. And no matter what is going on right now, like lift your eyes. And I tell myself that. I'm not saying that as any sort of command to anyone else in this room but me, but lift your eyes, take a step back, have perspective outside of this situation, this season, to what God is doing and what God will do. And the messiest, most broken, most hurtful situation right now is not forever. And this too shall pass is biblical. and God will make everything new. And so I remind myself of that, and I pray that that's an encouragement to others as well. And if you see my husband, you can remind him to remind me of that too.
Yes, it's true, right? Because sometimes we can get like tunnel vision, and we feel like whatever is happening right now is all that there is and all that will ever be. And it's so good to take a step back and remind ourselves, no, there's so much more, and there is hope, and there's different ways. I love hearing how differently God, like a person that you met a long time ago, or, somebody that you knew, encouraged you in the Word, or just putting your eyes in a children's book and God speaks to you. You know what I mean? He meets us where we're at. He really does. He meets us where we're at, and when we want to follow Him, when we want to do His will, no matter how hard things are, then He meets us and He provides, and He comforts us and guides us, because He's good. He is a good shepherd, even through the very difficult, dark places in our lives. And so that's beautiful to see. I know that you guys are all very busy. So how would you say that even though you have children and jobs and different things to do, how do you aim to keep God a priority in your life? I know that can look very different for different people, but how do you fight for your time with Him? What are some practical things maybe that you can even share with us?
So I will be the first to say I'm probably the worst. I know probably someone is going to say that. I don't know, but I think sometimes I probably am. It does get pushed to the back of my list quite often. You get up in the morning, you gotta get hair, comb, outfits on, out the door. Live in Savannah, so the traffic before used to be horrible, and an hour and then something, get everyone out the door in there. So where is it? And then it's like, do I wake up earlier? And so try to have that time. I love my sleep. I do. So I'm like, I don't want to wake up earlier. And at night, I can't keep my eyes open to finish the devotion. So I have learned a beautiful thing called audiobooks, and I do use a lot of the apps, like the Bible app, and listen to the Word while most times I'm having my shower. Honest to goodness, it's not the quiet time that I would like to have now. I had my stages when I didn't have as many kids and things. Life seemed a bit quieter, where you could have that time. As I've mentioned before, when I only had the one daughter, I would meet with my aunt on lunchtime, and we'd have that session. That doesn't happen now. I don't even eat lunch. So That doesn't happen. What I recently found that is my best friend with keeping me on task, and it might sound sad to some people, but it's really inspiring to me, is I teach Sunday school to some teenagers between the ages of, 14 and 17. And we have literally made an accountable group. So we've got a WhatsApp group, and every day it's like, hey, we're reading through Proverbs. That's what we're doing currently, so that's on my mind. And it's like they send a reminder every day to the whole group that we need to read. And well, that means I have to be accountable to them when I see them on Sunday morning that I've read what I had to read, or I've listened to it, and or added something in the group, and I try to engage them in it. And so the task of sharing what God has done for me gives me a task to ensure I do it. I love to say that it's just me wanting the knowledge, but it's kind of like it helps us both out. I do want the knowledge, and I am blessed to have the time, and the days that I don't miss a day, and even for them, we see a big difference in how God worked through us through that week. And they say the same thing. We can literally things just go smoother when you take that time to open your word, the word, and have God speak to you, even if it's only one verse out of a whole chapter that you manage to, connect with. But God rewards. That is what I found. And I love my youth that I am not only helping them to grow, but they're helping me to stay on task and on track. And so that's my cheater. I throw myself into a service duty, and in service, I'm blessed.
I would say in a similar way for us, incorporating the kids into kids' structure has been really helpful for us because devotions at night is kind of just part of the bedtime routine. That makes it simple. And like you said, it's amazing how much kids' books connect with us. I mean, they really do simplify truths that you need to remind yourself of. And because we pray just before we get to school. So one of my foster children goes to Georgetown Primary School, so we hit Rockpole Road, and she's okay. When Miss Carla was going to pray this morning, and I pray with my eyes open while I'm driving, just to be clear. And they're simple prayers, but it kind of refocuses our heart, and it also just makes that a part of our routine. And kids, like, if it's a routine, it's a routine. They're not going to let you forget it. So that's been, I think, also really, really helpful for us. And yeah, preparing Sunday school lessons and things like that is a great way to, and podcasts, and, and then I'm a big walker. I love to walk, so I will walk the beach, I will walk, any road that I can find, and try to have worship music on, so that's another time for me. And if I skip too many of those, my husband will be like, you need this, go. Like, he will make sure that I can go for my walk, because he'll see a change in my behavior, in my attitude, and my stress levels, everything. So just putting some worship music on and getting out there and just talking to God. And I'm a big believer in, with our faith walk, we can't just point kids to the road and say, follow that. We have to lead them. And we pray that they will surpass us in their faith journey, that they will, have an incredibly deep, wonderful, saving relationship with Christ their whole life, but they're also watching us. And so I think that responsibility of knowing that it's not a to-do, it's not a regimen that I have to follow, but if I want them to really know Christ, I need to model that for them. So there's a balance between making it a little bit too legalistic, but making sure that they're seeing the true relationship, I think. And the hard stuff, the good stuff, saying sorry, apologizing to them, letting them see kind of the full range, age appropriate of a faith walk, I think is really important as well.
I think that at different parts of my life, it's looked different. I've mostly had flexibility, so I've been able to, even if it wasn't first thing in the morning, at some point in my day, I've been able to fit something in. And like you said, one of you said, that God rewards that. I think that part of that reward is just, sometimes we can feel guilty, like, oh, I haven't been, whether it's prayer journal or it's sitting down and spending time and having a whatever quiet time is supposed to look like in your head. If you don't do it, then you feel guilty, and maybe you put it off because, oh, I don't know how he's going to hold this against me. But personally, I've never felt that. When I take the time to sit down and spend time with him, read the word, prayer journal, whatever, I always feel welcomed back. And for me, I need it. I really need it. And I think part of it is, as my relationship with the Lord has grown over the years, I really enjoy to spend time with him also. And it's wanting to set an example for my daughter, and knowing that if I don't spend time with him, then I I don't know, I don't know what the word would be. You have hangry when you're hungry. You have, I get that way if I don't have enough sleep. I get that way if I haven't, and I know that I'm not going to be the wife, the mother, the friend, any of that if I haven't spent some time, and I look forward to that time. So I actually don't do it first thing in the morning. I go through various, I homeschool my daughter, so she's always with me, but she's at an age I can occupy her, and now she's reading her Bible. So I'll be like, can you just read your Bible because I need to read mine, And I just look forward to that time, and I know my level of flexibility isn't everybody else's level of flexibility, but I think that sometimes having a plan of some sort. So there's been points in my life where I just open the Bible like, okay, I don't know where I should be reading, but whether it's that you just decide I'm going to read this book, or I'm going to do Proverbs and there's one for every day, or I love the Psalms. I'm a feeler. I love the way that there's so much emotion embraced, and it guides you in that. Like, it gives you permission to feel all of those things and still come back to worship. And right now, I started it last year and I'm doing it again this year. I don't know if you've heard of the Bible recap, but there's this lady who has organized this, I think they call it D groups, and she goes through the Bible in a chronological order. There's a reading plan on the Bible app, and she also has a podcast. So it's not very long, but you read 2 to 3 or 4 chapters a day depending on where you are, and you can try to, I'm going to read every day and I'm going to, make it through in the 365 days, or you can just take your time through it. But I've been so blessed, not just to be reading through the Bible, but she says, what's your God shot? So the goal in reading is not, I think a lot of us, especially if you grew up in the church, it's like, okay, where's the application point? What am I supposed to do? What does this say to me? But the goal in reading scripture, he gives us that. But the better thing is, what is this showing about him? What has he done in this passage? Or where do you see his character? And that's where we end up getting the most encouragement, I think. And the example he sets, whether you're in the Gospels or you're in Deuteronomy, and there's always something. And the podcast is helpful because she has gone through this process so many times that she has a lot of helpful insights, and she's studied quite a bit. So I highly recommend the Bible recap, and that's been a helpful tool for me. Even if I've missed a day and I'm behind a couple days, which I am right now, I can try to play catch up, or I can just give myself permission to, let's not speed through it, let's just soak it up right here.
I definitely think that you have to give yourself grace, right? In the sense that not like give yourself grace and don't do anything, but like there's seasons, and like even now, I was talking to Erica, who wasn't able to make it tonight, but she also has a baby, a newborn baby, and I was like, well, worship, like reading the Bible and being in God's Word right now looks incredibly different for me because I can't even eat. Where am I going to sit and read, right? But I'm just like, I put on worship while I'm breastfeeding, or I'm walking around the house, or that's how I'm connecting with God at the moment. And I think that he definitely meets us where we're at. And he knows that, we are human and there's seasons, but I think there's that aiming to be with him that he rewards, that he gives us of himself, and he helps us through our day and, and whatever we have to face. But in wrapping up, is there anything that you guys would love to say to the ladies? Anything that God has taught you, or anything in your walk with God that you would say, if there was one thing that I would want to say and leave you with, is this thing before we finish?
All right, I'll go. It's seasons, really. Like seasons where God kind of brings something to the forefront and you feel like you learn it, and then he moves you on, and then sometimes you have to go back and learn it again. But for me right now, and you guys know this because we recently did a little retreat together, and it was all about rest. And so if we looked at John 4, Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman, and just that thought of that, none of that story would have happened if he wasn't just sitting there. Like the point was that he did what God wanted him to do because he was sitting there at the well. He wasn't off getting the food. He wasn't, teaching even somewhere or doing something that we would consider more important. He was resting, sitting at the well. And because of that, we have this amazing story, and the woman went to the town and a bunch of people all chose to follow Jesus because of it. And so this sense of, it's not about what you accomplish, it's about the journey. And that sounds so cliche as I say that out loud. But it really is the sanctification, the changes that happen in you as part of the journey, not that you're checking off boxes or meeting goals or, and that's not even talking professional, like I'm talking spiritual life, that we kind of think that we need to kind of walk along this path with a goal and a destination in mind. But the destination is literally in us. That sounds very fairy, but but the destination is what is happening, what God is doing in our lives, and because of that, how we can share His love and His truth and His grace with the world around us. So, as someone who does, as I mentioned, like control and is very goal-oriented, reminding myself constantly that the ministry is not the place that I think I need to be. The ministry might be the person right in front of me, and that the goal is to do what God has called me to do, not to accomplish what I think God has called me to accomplish. Yeah.
I guess there's so much that I feel like God could be, wanting me to leave with you guys. My whole life has been a whirlwind at best, and as I mentioned before, with the teenage daughter, that I remember being 3 months, and my only prayer to Him was, if you just keep her healthy, because I was going through nursing school at the time, and I just read about all the things that could happen to a baby. I was freaking out. And she was meant to be. I was training for track and field at the time to be at Crypta. I'd been at Crypta before, and it was coming here that year. And I was bench pressing like 150 pounds. I was 3 months pregnant, I didn't know. And so God really wanted her here, and I was like, okay, she's here. I'm too far along to abort, which I was considering back then at 17. And then it wasn't possible, because when we did it, there was a heartbeat and she was waving, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm 17, I want to go off to college. This was not the plan, and I can't get rid of it, so I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just remember praying to God. As I said, I've been a Christian before, kind of straight, and He just blessed me, and I didn't do anything right with my daughter that I can tell you or put a finger on. If you do these things, your child's going to go right, or if you do these things are going to come together. Other than trusting in Christ. And was it perfect all the way? I strayed, but never too far by the grace of God, because of people who prayed for me, because of the foundations that were laid. My life came back on track to Christ, which I'm very grateful for everyone who prayed for me during that whole time. And then my daughter grew up, got married, went to Christian college as well, found a Christian husband, is married to a youth pastor, and I feel immensely blessed and so grateful to God for everything He did, because I didn't know what to do. They don't come with a manual when you're 40, much less when you're 17, and trying to figure that out. And even bringing my husband into my life, and as much as I said it was so hard, he was another blessing in her life. He taught her things that I would never have taught her. He opened my eyes to different things. He stole every car. He loved a sports car, if you know him. He sold every car and put her through college. She doesn't know a dime to anyone. Like, she was able to finish college because of my husband's heart and love for her, despite all the differences and difficulties we've had along the way. And God has just really blessed us. And I think it's that faithfulness of coming to Him and seeking Him. And all we really need to do is stay faithful in the dark moments, in the moments you're not quite sure what to do with. Lean on Christ, not on ourselves, not I can do it if I try really hard, if I think really hard. No, lean on Christ. He will not let you down. And even though you don't see it in that moment, He is working out everything for your good to be pleasing to Him. And so just lean on Christ, and you're not alone. Many of us have gone through many situations, but God is best, but God. So just lean on Christ.
One of the main thing that comes to my mind is something that I'm reminding myself of, and that's that there's a bigger picture than me. I think that our tendency is to think, well, I'm the main character in my story, and what's God teaching me, and what's my purpose, and not that those are bad questions, but I think that our focus can often be on ourselves, and really it's not about us, that we're part of this beautiful ministry story, His story that He's doing. You read through the Bible and you read about the people of Israel, and I don't know about you, but you get frustrated. How many times they just question him? He just parted the Red Sea, guys, you know, and we're starving, we should go back to Egypt. But if you think about it, we have the same tendency to get so focused on ourselves and to think that God isn't doing what we've asked him to do. Or even when I lost the first pregnancy, I was told that the person wasn't trying to be rude, but the way it was hard, said I was entitled to blessings. And that was such a true statement. It was hard to hear because I was like, hello, see what I'm going through? But it was true that in my mind, I've done everything that I should have done. Why would he do this to me? You know, like, why would he take this from me? And I didn't see the purpose. And I don't think we always get to see the purpose. Read Job, you know, he didn't get to know why, but if we are able to take a step back and recognize that he is both interested in us individually, that he loves us individually, but that we're part of this big, beautiful tapestry that he's doing, and that those individual things that happen to us, the hard things, the good things, are all, we can worship God through them, we can cry out and lament, that's the Psalms again, but it's just part of something else that he's doing, and it matters. He cares how we feel, he cares what we're going through, but it doesn't stop with me. It doesn't start with me, you know, and I think it's a hard thing to remember, and it's a hard thing to embrace because it's so countercultural. But as much as we individually matter, it isn't about us.
Well, thank you. Really, I think that we've been encouraged and blessed tonight through what God has spoken through you ladies. And so why don't we give them an applause and thank them for being with us tonight. And we're just going to finish tonight with one last song. I know Lisa's coming up. And just, if God has spoken to you, if there's something that resonated with you, why don't you just take this time while we sing to pray and to give it to God and to let God speak to you. And then we'll just finish tonight being thankful for what God has spoken to us.